In the last episode, the girls' bravery and determination had brought together a group of survivors in the aftermath of the catastrophic event that had ravaged the planet. With her leadership, they had established a thriving community built on the principles of cooperation, mutual respect, and a deep connection with the natural world. As I stood on the edge of our community, gazing out at the lush fields and vibrant gardens, a sense of pride and wonder swelled within me. It was hard to believe that just a few years ago this had been a barren wasteland, devoid of life and hope. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow over the landscape, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers. Children's laughter echoed through the streets, mingling with the sound of music and the clinking of glasses from the tavern. I couldn't help but think of how far we'd come. From the early days of scavenging for food and fighting off raiders to this, a thriving, self-sufficient society where everyone had a place and a purpose. But as I looked out at the crowd gathered in the town square, my mind began to wander. There were still so many unknowns out there, so many threats lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. Suddenly, a commotion broke out near the entrance of the village. A group of outsiders had arrived, their faces weary and their clothes worn. They looked like they'd been traveling for weeks. One of them, a young woman with a determined look in her eye, pushed her way to the front of the group. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling. "We need your help, our town. It's been attacked. We're all that's left." My heart went out to her and I knew that we had to act. This was what our community was built for, to help those in need and to spread hope in a world that desperately needed it. As I nodded to the guards, allowing the outsiders to enter, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. This was just the beginning of a new chapter in our story, one that would take us beyond our little community and into the wider world beyond. But for now, I pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the task at hand. We had new friends to welcome and a town to help rebuild. "Let's get to work," I said, smiling at the young woman. "We've got a lot to do." She nodded, a look of gratitude on her face, and together we began the long journey of healing and rebuilding. As the days turned into weeks, our community continued to thrive. New faces arrived, drawn by our reputation for warmth and resilience. We welcomed them with open arms and they quickly became a part of our vibrant tapestry. Our farm flourished, providing an abundance of fresh produce for our tables. The marketplace bustled with activity as artisans and traders showcased their wares, and our cultural scene came alive with music, art, and storytelling filling the evenings. But as our influence expanded, I began to receive visitors from neighboring towns. They came seeking guidance, hungry for wisdom on how to build their own harmonious societies. I shared my story and the lessons we'd learned along the way. I spoke of cooperation, mutual respect, and the importance of living in harmony with the natural world. And as I looked out at the faces before me, I saw the spark of hope ignite in their eyes. They left with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to build a brighter future for themselves and their communities. It was a slow process, but I knew that we were on the cusp of something special. A movement of hope and cooperation, one that would spread far and wide and bring about a new era of peace and prosperity. As I lay in bed that night, my mind whirling with thoughts of the future, I knew that our journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead and obstacles to overcome. But I also knew that we were ready. We were a community built on the principles of hope, resilience, and determination. And together, we would face whatever lay ahead, knowing that a brighter future awaited us all. As I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that our small community was just the beginning of something much larger. The visitors from neighboring towns had sparked a fire within me, and I knew that I had to do more to spread our message of hope and cooperation. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with ideas and strategies. I thought about the towns that had already reached out to us and the many more that were likely struggling to survive. I thought about the resources we could share, the knowledge we could impart, and the support we could offer. Suddenly, I sat up in bed, a plan forming in my mind. I would gather a group of our most skilled and experienced community members, and we would set out to help those in need. We would travel to the nearby towns, sharing our expertise and providing assistance where we could. I threw off the covers, excitement coursing through my veins. This was it. This was the way we could make a real difference. This was the way we could bring about true change. I hurried out of my bedroom, making my way to the town square. The moon was full overhead, casting a silver glow over the village. I found my closest friends and allies and gathered them around me. "I have an idea," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We've been so focused on building our own community, but I think it's time we look beyond our borders. We need to help the other towns, to share our knowledge and resources with them." There was a moment of stunned silence and then a chorus of excited chatter. My friends were on board, and together we began to make plans. The next morning we set out on our mission. We traveled to the nearby towns, taking with us teams of farmers, builders, and healers. We shared our expertise, providing guidance on sustainable agriculture, green architecture, and natural medicine. As we traveled, I saw the impact we were having. I saw the hope in the eyes of those we met and the gratitude in their smiles. I saw the changes taking place, the small improvements that added up to make a big difference. But I also saw the challenges. I saw the ravaged landscapes, the devastated communities, and the people struggling to survive. I saw the remnants of the old world, the decaying infrastructure, and the broken machinery, and I knew that we had our work cut out for us. We had to keep pushing forward, spreading our message of hope and cooperation, and working towards a brighter future. As we made our way back to our community, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. This was what we were meant to do. This was our calling. And I knew that as long as we stayed true to our principles, as long as we kept our hearts open and our minds focused, we would make a real difference. We would bring about a new era of peace and prosperity, one that would spread far and wide and bring hope to a world that desperately needed it. As I looked out at the landscape, I saw the sun setting on a new horizon. I saw a world full of possibility, full of promise, and I knew that we were just getting started. But little did I know, our journey was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would test our resolve, our courage, and our commitment to our values, one that would force us to confront the darkest corners of the human heart and to face the ultimate challenge. Can hope and cooperation triumph over darkness and despair? The answer only time would tell. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. Our community was thriving and our influence was spreading. I smiled to myself, thinking of the countless lives we'd touched and the hope we'd inspired. But my contentment was short-lived. Just as I was about to fall asleep, I was startled by a loud knocking on my door. I sat up, my heart racing, and called out, "Who is it?" "It's one of the scouts, ma'am," a voice replied. "We've received a message from a nearby town. They're in trouble and they need our help." I threw off the covers and rushed to the door, my mind racing with possibilities. What kind of trouble could they be in? Were they under attack? Had they suffered some kind of natural disaster? I flung open the door and a young scout stood before me, her face pale and worried. "What is it?" I demanded. "The town of Willowdale has been taken over by a group of raiders," she replied, her voice trembling. "They're holding the townspeople hostage and they're demanding that we surrender our food and supplies." My heart dropped. This was exactly the kind of situation we'd been preparing for. I knew that we had to act, and fast. "Gather the council," I ordered. "We need to come up with a plan to help Willowdale." The scout nodded and rushed off to gather the council members. I knew that this was going to be a tough decision, but I was ready. We'd worked too hard to build our community to let it be threatened now. As I waited for the council to assemble, my mind raced with possibilities. We could send a team of guards to fight off the raiders, or we could try to negotiate with them. But deep down, I knew that neither of those options was likely to work. We needed something more. Something that would show the raiders that we wouldn't be intimidated and that we'd fight to protect our friends and neighbors. And then, it hit me. I knew exactly what we had to do. The council assembled and I presented my plan. We would send a team of guards, but not to fight. We would send them to reason with the raiders, to show them that there was another way. We would offer them food, shelter, and a place in our community. We would show them that there was a better way to live, one that didn't involve violence and exploitation. The council was hesitant at first, but as I spoke, I could see the doubt in their eyes begin to fade. They knew that I was right. This was our chance to show the world that our way was better. And so, with a newfound sense of determination, we set out to help Willowdale. We would face whatever lay ahead, knowing that our way was the right way. As we made our way to Willowdale, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and purpose. We were about to embark on a journey that would change the course of history, one that would bring about a new era of peace and cooperation. And I knew that no matter what lay ahead, we would face it together. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The community was thriving and our message of hope and cooperation was spreading. But as I began to dream, a faint hum of unease crept into my mind. I saw flashes of dark forests, twisted metal, and glowing eyes. I saw the face of the old world, a world that was dying and the remnants of a civilization that had brought about its own downfall. I woke with a start, my heart racing. It was just a dream, I told myself, but the feeling lingered, a sense of foreboding that I couldn't shake. I rose from bed and made my way to the central square. The sun was rising, casting a golden glow over the community. I breathed in deeply, taking in the sense of baking bread and freshly brewed coffee. As I walked, I noticed a figure standing at the edge of the village. It was a young man, dressed in worn leather armor and carrying a scarred sword at his side. He looked like a warrior, battle-hardened and weary. I approached him, my curiosity piqued. "Welcome to our community," I said, extending a hand. He looked at me warily, his eyes narrowing. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said, his voice deep and rough. "I'm looking for someone, a girl with hair as black as night and eyes that shine like the stars." I felt a jolt of surprise. "You mean Ava," I said, my heart racing. "What do you want with her?" The warrior's eyes locked onto mine and I saw a glimmer of determination. "I've been searching for her for weeks," he said. "I have news from the outside world, news that could change everything." I felt a shiver run down my spine. What could this stranger know that could affect our little community? But as I looked into his eyes, I saw a glimmer of truth and a sense of purpose that I couldn't ignore. "Come," I said, gesturing to the central square. "Let's talk." As we sat down, surrounded by the bustling community, I knew that our lives were about to change forever. The world beyond our little village was full of secrets and mysteries waiting to be uncovered. And I had a feeling that this stranger was about to reveal a truth that would shake us to our core. As I drifted off to sleep, the image of the young woman's determined face lingered in my mind. Her town, attacked and devastated, was a harsh reminder that our work was far from over. There were still so many communities out there, struggling to survive in a world fraught with danger. The next morning, I gathered my closest friends and advisors to discuss our next move. We sat around the large wooden table in the town hall, poring over maps and discussing strategies. "We can't just sit here and wait for others to come to us," I said, my voice firm with determination. "We need to take our message of hope and cooperation to them." "We've already sent out scouting parties," said Maria, her brow furrowed in concern. "But it's not enough. We need to think bigger." "I agree," said Jax, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "We need to establish a network of alliances with other towns and communities. We can share resources, knowledge, and support." The room erupted into a flurry of ideas and suggestions, with everyone contributing their thoughts and expertise. As we talked, a plan began to take shape. We would send out emissaries, chosen for their charisma, empathy, and diplomatic skills. They would travel to neighboring towns, sharing our story and our vision of a brighter future. They would forge alliances, establish trade routes, and provide support to those in need. As we finalized our plan, I felt a surge of excitement and anticipation. This was the next step in our journey, one that would take us beyond our little community and into the wider world beyond. Over the next few weeks, our emissaries set out, carrying with them the message of hope and cooperation. They traveled through treacherous landscapes, braving harsh weather and fending off threats from roving gangs. But they persevered, driven by their determination to spread our message and build a better world. As they traveled, they encountered other communities, each with their own unique stories and struggles. Some were wary of outsiders, their trust broken by past betrayals. Others were desperate for help, their resources dwindling and their futures uncertain. Our emissaries listened, empathized, and shared our story. They offered support, guidance, and resources, helping these communities to rebuild and thrive. And as they traveled, they gathered intelligence, reporting back to us on the state of the world beyond our little community. They spoke of hidden dangers, of rival factions vying for power, and of ancient technologies waiting to be rediscovered. But they also spoke of hope, of resilience, and of the human spirit's ability to persevere in the face of adversity. They spoke of communities coming together, of people from different backgrounds and cultures working towards a common goal. As the reports flooded in, I felt a sense of pride and wonder. Our movement was growing, spreading like ripples on a pond. It was a movement of hope, one that would bring about a new era of peace and prosperity. But I also knew that we couldn't rest on our laurels. There were still challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome and dangers to face. As I looked out at the faces of my friends and allies, I knew that we were ready. We would face whatever lay ahead together, as a community built on the principles of hope, resilience, and determination. And as I smiled, a sense of purpose washing over me, I knew that our journey was far from over. We were just beginning to scratch the surface of what was possible, and I couldn't wait to see what the future held. As I drifted off to sleep, I was awoken by a faint humming noise coming from outside my window. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, wondering if I was dreaming. The humming grew louder, and I threw off my blankets to investigate. I pushed open the window, and a warm breeze carried the sweet scent of blooming flowers into my room. I gazed out into the darkness, and my heart skipped a beat as I saw a fleet of strange, glowing aircraft hovering above the treetops. Their luminescent hulls pulsed with a soft blue light, and I felt a shiver run down my spine as I realized that these were not from around here. They were not from our world at all. I rushed out of my room, calling out to my friends and the guards. Together, we gathered at the edge of the village, watching in awe as the aircraft descended onto the outskirts of our community. A group of figures emerged from the ships, dressed in sleek, futuristic attire. They approached us with caution, holding strange devices in their hands. One of them, a woman with piercing green eyes, stepped forward and addressed us in a language I didn't understand. One of our villagers, a young man who had spent time with travelers from other lands, stepped forward and translated. "They come in peace," he said. "They hail from a world beyond our own, and they've been watching us from afar. They're impressed by our community and they want to learn from us." I felt a mix of emotions, wonder, excitement, and a touch of fear. What did this mean for our community? For our world? The woman, who introduced herself as Ambassador Area, smiled warmly. "We've observed your society and we're intrigued by your harmony with nature and your commitment to cooperation. We believe that our worlds can learn from each other, and we propose an exchange of knowledge and ideas." I looked around at my friends, searching for their reactions. Some looked thrilled, while others seemed more cautious. I took a deep breath, weighing the pros and cons. This was a momentous decision, one that could change the course of our history. But as I looked up at the stars, I knew that we had to take the leap. We had to be open to the possibilities, no matter how daunting they seemed. "Let's do it," I said, extending a hand to Ambassador Area. "Let's learn from each other and show the universe that cooperation and hope can conquer even the vast distances between worlds." As our hands clasped, the crowd erupted in cheers, and the night sky seemed to grow brighter, filled with the promise of a brighter, more wondrous future.